killed or something. So we need to understand exactly what happened, how it happened, who was involved, the extent of damage.
To count the numbers
yes,
to tell us that 7 people were in there and all that.
Yeah.
So I think that the ministry and the embassy will be the right source of information to tell us, I mean, the exact
Numbers
involved, what exactly happened, and if they are survivors, where they are, what their situation is now.
And I think if they are survivors, that helps because they'll be able to tell the story much more accurately.
Yeah.
Exactly what happened.
Important because no one know.
No, but you can't tell.
Well,
yes, because this
at
is a
that
report that
particular
was being categorical.
moment,
Yes. So there are many things that could have happened because in the aftermath of the incident, the reporter could have turned up and spoken to those who were there, those who have survived, the survivors, who will tell them exactly what happened. So at this point in time, you cannot even dismiss the reporter because the person who they said was spoken to is in Ghana. I think this is a journalist who works around that catchment area. So he's able to tell what happened. So you cannot dismiss what the reporter is saying. You must also be expecting much more detail. So the Interior Ministry needs to give us some more details when they get it. Because it's like a holding statement that does not say a lot.
Yes. And I think, I mean, they should give us an update by now. They should be giving us an update
by now.
Yeah.
I see. Let's speak to Alhaji Dr. Aminu Shitu, who is adjunct lecturer at Chelsea University. Thank you very much, Alhaji, and good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
How are you? I'm doing, and I hope you are too.
Great.
First, your response to the details you are hearing on this issue.
Well, very sad occurrence. Our heart goes to the families and the other affected people. We just hope that God will console them. Unfortunately, it's a reality that the sub-region is confronted with. And even as we're still waiting for more details, it appears we understand 7 Ghanaians have lost their lives. And we are only hoping that the embassy will help us get in some details. But importantly, I think that it reinforces the fact that this Sahel region is actually a very, huge security threat to the sub-region. And I mean ECOWAS. And that to the extent that about 51% of deaths occur in West Africa is even attributed to the Sahel region. That is just out of a terrorist, attack. That is from Mali to Niger to Burkina Faso. And these are quite worrying signs. And maybe it just reinforces the fact that our leaders must wake up. And that brings us to the recent high level, conference that was held in Accra, basically to see how there will be some level of cooperation among West African leaders in order to actually get a hold of this fight against terrorism and violent extremism. It is a collective fight, and we must wake up to it, else it is just going to retard our development. Already, as the developing countries, we know the challenges we have as far as access to health, access to good roads, and so on and so forth, jobs, etc. are concerned. All these are already mind-boggling, challenges that are confronting the sub-region. So to have violent extremism adding to those challenges only tells us that we have a huge problem. And I believe that if during that consultation, I guess it was at the end of January, I believe, the 1st January, one thing that was clear was that our president, and I do share with him in that respect, that he asked for building bridges to fight terrorism and violent extremism. And that it must be a collective fight. This is a real challenge that is confronting us. And I believe some other speakers, like the chair of the ECOWAS, that's president of Sierra Leone, agrees with him. The president of Liberia, who also spoke in the same context, also agreed with him. Generally, all speakers in that forum agree that this is a collective fight and we must wake up to it. So we have a protocol that allows free movement of our citizens. And somehow, if citizens cannot move freely to go and trade or do other things, then that poses a challenge. To the extent that we are losing lives, that tells us that's a big problem. So I believe that the need for improvement in how we collaborate, how we strengthen coordination amongst these countries, the need to ensure or enhance effective cross-border security, and for the entire sub-region, comes to the table. If we do not do this, then our development will be affected. The progress of this sub-region is going to be retarded. So it's another call that we actually renew the framework in order to ensure that national sovereignties are respected. I believe in this context, diplomacy must be prioritized. We must deepen collective responsibility to integrate the security responses. Because no matter what, citizens will move across borders. What is going to be the responses we have among these sovereign countries in order to protect life and property? Because this series of attacks is one too many, and it only retards economic development if efforts are not put together in order to fight it collectively.
Interesting. But and you've already talked about the response of the sub-region. I'll come to the specific response of Ghana, what we need to do, what steps needs to be taken. But before that, for those who are wondering exactly what is happening in Burkina Faso, that traders who are going to buy tomatoes will be attacked by terrorists. Some education for many of us. What's the problem with the Sahel region, including Burkina Faso?
Yeah, generally, since these countries decided to win themselves away from France, they have had problems. But that is not to say that there were no problems before. There were internal fractures. They had their own political differences here and there. But somehow, since they tried to break away from France, you realize that they're even trying to form a union among themselves in order to protect each other and to pursue what they think is their own sovereign right. That dependence on France must be put aside. They must win themselves away from France, and then they think that their relationship with France is one that has been exploitative. So that in itself has become a problem. Indeed, there are several reports that suggest that even France itself seems to supporting some of these terrorists in order just to destabilize, these countries. For example, America no longer have so much presence in these countries. France the same way. And then if we go back to the last attack that America was believed to have launched in a place like Sokoto, it is believed that it is a way to get at Niger. So generally, these countries, since they decide to come together and get away from France, it has been one of difficulties, and it has to do with the fact that France is also losing grip in the whole region. So because of that, they seem to be supporting certain, individuals or organizations, largely terrorists, of course, to find a way to destabilize, those regions. And that is the situation we have as of now.
And how widespread is what we are talking about? The extent of control this terrorist have.
Yeah, it's really widespread. Because in case of like Burkina, for example, they control not less than a third of the country, and they are partly located in Niger too. They are partly located in Mali as well. Okay, and it even goes up to Chad. Okay, and that's why sometimes I have this simple question that for all these individuals who are fighting sovereign states, let's ask ourselves, where do they get the arms and ammunition from? I have always maintained that with my little experience in Liberia, I interacted with not less than 2,600 rebels. As somebody who was so inquisitive, I tried to ask them, so during the course of your fighting, how were you getting the arms and ammunition? Because to the best of my knowledge, these countries don't have factories to produce the AK-47s, the grenades, and all the arms and ammunition that you can think of. So the question is, how are these things making their way into these countries? And individuals criminals for that matter, are able to stand and fight sovereign states. It tells you that there are hidden hands beyond the borders of the countries that we're talking about. So definitely that is the extent to which some of these things have been internationalized. And of course, we all know that these Western countries, they have their own interest in our countries. One which is just their interest in the minerals, resources. I mean, to have control over our own destiny, our resources here and there. So to the extent that these countries are trying to win away from France, definitely, if France is being accused of funding some of these organizations, it is not difficult to believe. Even though we know internally, some of these countries have their own differences. Some religious, some even ethnic. Like if you take the Tuareg rivers in Niger, they have been fighting for a sovereign geographical area ever since. But to the extent that they could not succeed, and now they are getting external support to be able to fight the state, definitely they will take up that kind of task. But unfortunately, it is the ordinary people who is affected. It is development that is being retarded, and so on and so forth. So generally, the sub-region is confronted with this situation. And that is why I quite agree with our president that says that we must open that gate in order to build trust. Well, at the point, if you look at the beginning of the Mali's trouble, it was as if ECOWAS was being used. That was the time Tinubu was the chair of ECOWAS. And Tinubu was like more or less dancing to the tune of France. So that itself created some mistrust within ECOWAS. So if our president is suggesting that we must open trust opportunities, then we must do it on the basis of trust that we can actually come together and collectively fight this. Because for them, Mali, Burkina, and Niger, they see themselves as fighting a common enemy. One, internal, which are these rebel groups that we're talking about, and then two, external, which is France, and to some extent even the US, right? So to the extent possible, they know what they are confronted with. But for purposes of our cross-border businesses here and there, we need to build that trust, at least within the sub-region, so it will facilitate the movement of our citizens. Else, we are going to be confronted with this unfortunate situation that we had on Saturday.
And let me conclude then by asking, because we are now expecting more information from the ministry as to exactly what happened. Until then, what do you expect? What steps do you expect our government to take?
Well, I believe by now our security setup here should be in touch with them. To some extent, I believe we have a good relation with Burkina, so it should not be out of place if our security couples here are in touch with the Burkina authorities. One, let's even know what happened and how it happened, right? So we'll get the details of the incident. We understand the embassy was supposed to even visit the site and get more information. I think these are all necessary for the immediate, to advise whatever would be done in the immediate. Until we get the details of this information, probably we need to just be advised to be careful traveling into Burkina at this time until there is that clear information as to how the whole thing happened. And then, was it something that was meant for internal instability that our people were caught in the fire? Or was it really a direct attack on our people? I think that needs to be established. And I believe that we have a good relationship with Burkina, that we can collaborate and be able to get these information out. Else, our people will have to, hold on for a while and to wait for security clearance before they can make, further travels into the country.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's quite a complicated thing happening up north, especially the Sahel region, the way things are playing out. Terrorists have such level of control to the extent that there's a need to be careful when you're applying some of these areas and maybe traveling around Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, mostly. Well, we'll continue the conversation on this. There's a statement from the